What would you do if the whole town watched while your own father tried to sell you like a sack of grain? The dust on Main Street of Bitter Creek blew hard that August afternoon, covering everything in Wyoming territory with a dry, gritty film. Clara May stood with her back pressed against a wooden post outside her father's general store, fighting the sting in her eyes as Jonas May's angry voice shook the street. $20, he shouted. That's all she's worth to me. People stopped what they were doing. Cowboys leaned against the hitching rails. Railroad workers came out of Pike's saloon. A few women peeked from behind curtains. Clara wanted to vanish into the wood, but there was nowhere to hide. Her father's face was red from anger and whiskey. Fed her, clothed her for 22 years, and what do I get? A spinster who can't even catch a husband. Laughter rolled through the crowd. Clara felt her cheeks burn. She'd known her father was cruel, but she had prayed he would never truly go through with this threat. Then Pike himself stepped into the sun. Harlan Pike was a thick man with greedy eyes. He wiped his hands on his dirty apron and looked Clara over in a way that made her skin crawl. 20 seems high, Pike said. She's past her prime. Damaged goods, if you ask me. The crowd chuckled again. Clara's fists tightened at her sides, nails digging into her palms. She wanted to scream, to run, to fight. But where would she go? Out into the prairie where a woman alone didn't last long? She can cook, Jonas barked. She can clean, and she's got all her teeth. Pike smirked. $15, and I'll be generous, but I need to inspect the merchandise. He started toward Clara. She shrank back against the post, her heart pounding. The crowd parted, watching with a cruel kind of excitement. Pike lifted one thick finger toward her chin. Clara jerked her head away. Feisty, Pike said with a laugh. I'll break that spirit quick. You'll do no such thing. A voice rolled across the street like distant thunder. Every head turned. A tall man stood at the edge of the crowd. He led a pack mule heavy with bundles of fur. He looked like he'd walked straight out of the mountains. Lean, rough, dark-haired, dressed in worn leather and dust. His eyes were gray, cold as winter sky. This ain't your concern, stranger, Jonas snapped. The man tied his mule to the post with slow, steady movements. Then he stepped forward. Ethan Boone, he said simply. And I'm making it my concern. Pike stiffened. We already made a deal. 15 and a jug of whiskey. You can't match that. Ethan walked to his mule, untied a bundle, and dropped it on the ground. A spill of thick beaver pelts rolled out, dark and glossy. The crowd gasped. These were worth real money, hard-earned money. $40 worth, Ethan said quietly. More if the buyer's smart. Jonas's eyes nearly bulged out of his head. 40? Not for her, Ethan said. For her freedom. There's a difference. Pike's hand drifted toward his pistol. The crowd tensed. Ethan's hand slid to his own holster without hurry, but with deadly certainty. You sure you want to try that? Ethan asked. Pike backed down fast. Jonas snatched the pelts. She's your problem now, Boone. He didn't even look at Clara as he hurried off, clutching the furs. 22 years of work, 22 years of trying to be enough. And he walked away without a glance. Something inside Clara broke clean through. The crowd drifted off. Some looked curious. Some looked guilty. None stepped forward. Ethan turned to her. I'm heading back to my place in the mountains, he said. You can come with me if you want, or I'll pay your stage fare to anywhere you choose. Denver, Cheyenne, East, anywhere. Clara stared at him. Why? She whispered. Why would you do this? Quote, because I've been where you are, Ethan said in his calm, steady way. People deciding your worth for you. Nobody should live that way. But those pelts, that must have been months of work. He shrugged. Pelts can be replaced. A person's dignity can't. Clara looked around. At Pike's saloon, at the store where she'd worked for no pay, at the town that had never stood up for her. The sky in the west grew dark with a coming storm. Come with me, Ethan said gently, or I'll help you start fresh somewhere else, your call. A choice, No one had ever given her one before. She looked into the storm and then into Ethan's cold, gray eyes that somehow felt steadier than anything she'd ever known. "I'll go with you," she said. "At least until I figure out what comes next." Ethan nodded like he already knew her answer. "Then let's get you outfitted." Winter in the mountains comes early. As they walked toward the mercantile, Clara felt the weight of the town's stairs on her back. Let them look. Tomorrow she'd be gone. Bitter Creek would be nothing but a memory. And for the first time in her life, Clara May walked toward her future without fear. What if the only safe place you'd ever known was with a man you barely knew at all? The storm clouds chased Clara and Ethan west as they left Bitter Creek behind. Clara's new boots pinched her feet, but she kept walking, refusing to complain. Each step carried her farther from the life she'd been trapped in and closer to something she didn't yet understand. Ethan walked ahead, leading the mule. The mountains rose in the distance, tall and quiet, like they were waiting for her. By late afternoon, the wind picked up, sharp and cold. "We'll make camp in that cottonwood grove," Ethan said. "Storm's close." Clara nodded, though her legs were trembling from the long walk. At the grove, Ethan moved with quick, practiced skill. He tied a canvas tarp between two trees, built a fire ring, and unpacked supplies. Clara helped gather dry branches, grateful for something useful to do. "You've built fires before," Ethan noted when she arranged the sticks just right. "I had to," she said. "Pa didn't cook for himself." "Good. Knowing how to keep warm keeps you alive up here." She wanted to ask how he had lived alone all these years, but the question felt too personal, too soon. The first fat drops of rain fell as Clara lit the fire. Soon the storm cracked open above them. Rain drummed against the tarp. Thunder rolled across the sky. The fire hissed, but Clara kept it steady. Ethan brought over bacon, beans, hard biscuits, and a battered skillet. Clara took the food without a word and began to cook. Something inside her settled. This she could do. This she understood. "You don't have to," Ethan said gently. "I want to," she answered. He didn't argue. He just sat close enough to offer help if she needed it, but not close enough to frighten her. It struck Clara as odd. A man who didn't push. A man who didn't take. A man who didn't expect her fear to be his advantage. They ate as lightning lit up the grove in sharp flashes. Clara tried not to flinch, but she couldn't hide the way her shoulders jumped at each boom. "Are you afraid?" Ethan asked. She considered lying, then shook her head. "I'm learning that fear's not a weakness," she said quietly. "Sometimes it's the only thing that kept me alive." Ethan nodded. "Fear keeps you sharp. Just don't let it own you." They sat in silence a moment before Clara spoke again. "Why did you do it? Why spend so much to free me?" Ethan stared into the fire. His jaw tightened, and for a long moment Clara thought he wouldn't answer. Then he spoke. "My wife was Cheyenne," he said softly. "Sarah Walking Cloud. Smartest person I ever knew. We had a daughter, too. Emma. She was 2 when sickness came through the mission where they were staying." He paused, breath catching as if speaking hurt. "I was hunting, trying to find meat to help them get strong. When I came back," he shook his head, "it was too late." Clara felt the fire's warmth fade under a cold sadness. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "After that, I couldn't stay around people. Couldn't stand the way the world made rules about who mattered and who didn't. So I went to the mountains. Built a place where no one could be bought or sold." His eyes lifted to hers. "When I saw your father holding out a price for you, Sarah would have never forgiven me if I'd walked away." The storm outside thundered, but the air between them felt still and heavy. Clara swallowed hard. "I didn't think men like you existed." Ethan said nothing. He simply added another log to the fire. They talked until the storm softened. Clara told him about her mother, about raising Samuel, her brother, about the loneliness she had swallowed for years. "You've carried too much alone," Ethan said quietly. "So have you," she answered. He didn't deny it. As night deepened, Clara stifled a yawn she couldn't hide. "You sleep by the fire," Ethan said. "I'll stay near the entrance." You don't have to. I do. Clara didn't argue. She made a bed of pine needles and spread her blanket. As she lay down, Ethan spoke again. Clara, he said, his voice low, that choice I gave you, it still stands. In the morning, if you want to turn back, I'll take you. No questions. Clara looked through the tarp opening. The storm clouds were breaking. Stars peeked through. I won't change my mind, she whispered. How can you be sure? Quote. She closed her eyes. Because for the first time in my life, I got to choose. The fire crackled softly. Rain pattered like a lullaby. Somewhere in the dark, a coyote cried, and Clara fell asleep without fear of morning. The next 2 days were harder. The trail climbed. Clara's feet blistered. Her legs ached. By the 5th mile, she shook with exhaustion. Without a word, Ethan stopped the mule and adjusted the supplies. Ride, he said simply. I can walk. You can, he agreed gently, but you don't have to. Clara swallowed her pride and climbed up. For the first time, she let herself rest. On the 3rd day, they reached Ethan's hidden valley. Clara's breath caught. The trees opened to reveal a cabin tucked against the slope, a silver stream running nearby. It was rough, but beautiful in a way she'd never seen. This is home, Ethan said. It's beautiful, Clara whispered. Inside, the cabin was one big room, with a loft for sleeping and a fireplace of smooth stones. It felt warm, safe, lived in. Ethan pointed up at the loft. You'll sleep there. I'll stay by the fire. Ethan, I don't want to take your... It's yours until you decide what comes next, he said firmly. Her chest tightened with something that felt dangerously close to hope. That night, as she lay in the loft wrapped in warm blankets, the wind rustling through the pines outside, Clara realized something. She hadn't just escaped Bitter Creek. She'd found the first place in her life where she wasn't unwanted. What if the life you thought you didn't deserve suddenly became the only life you wanted? Winter came early in Ethan's valley. The wind grew sharp, and snow dusted the pines by late October. Clara worked beside Ethan day after day, learning how to live in the mountains. She learned to split wood, stack it right, mend gear, and keep the cabin warm. Ethan taught her patiently, never raising his voice, never treating her as less. Every evening they sat by the fire, talking in low voices, while the storm winds rattled the cabin walls. Slowly, without Clara noticing the moment it happened, the cabin no longer felt like his home. It felt like theirs. One morning, Clara woke to a strange sound, something banging hard against the cabin wall. She rushed from her room to find Ethan pulling on his coat, jaw tight. The shed roof's coming loose, he said. If it blows off, we'll lose half our winter supplies. What can I do? She asked. He hesitated only 1 second. I need someone to hold the lantern, but it's dangerous. I'll do it. They fought the storm together. Snow whipped across their faces. The wind tried to rip the lantern from Clara's hands. Ethan climbed onto the shed roof, hammering boards back down as the wind pushed hard against him. A sudden gust snapped a loose board free, sending it spinning through the air. It hit Ethan across the face, knocking him sideways. He slipped, boots sliding toward the edge. Ethan! Clara dropped the lantern and lunged, grabbing his coat with both hands. Her boots skidded in the snow, but she held on, pulling him back with every bit of strength she had. They fell together into the snow. Inside, Clara ordered. Now. Back in the cabin, the firelight showed blood running down his cheek. Clara didn't waste time. She washed his face, cleaned the cut, pressed a cloth to it. Her hands shook, but she didn't stop. You're not invincible, she said, voice trembling. Don't make me watch you fall. Ethan's eyes softened. You saved me out there. You saved me first, she said. Call it even. He gave a small, crooked smile. Fair enough. That night, neither of them slept much. They stayed close to the fire, listening to the storm rage. Somehow, the cabin didn't feel big enough to hold everything happening between them. Trust fear, something deeper too. When dawn came, they found the shed half collapsed, but most supplies still dry. They saved what they could and carried it to the barn. Their hands brushed more than once, neither pulled away. Days turned into weeks. Snow deepened outside. Inside, Clara and Ethan found a rhythm that felt right. But winter hit harder than expected. One morning, Ethan returned from the barn, carrying the worst news Clara had ever seen on his face. "It's Sage," he said. "She's badly hurt." Stall gave out, her legs broken. Clara followed him to the barn. The mare lay on her side, breathing fast, her leg twisted wrong. Clara knelt beside her, stroking her neck. Ethan stood behind them, holding his rifle. "No," Clara whispered. "Please, give me one day with her, just one. Let me try." Their eyes met. After a long moment, Ethan nodded. "One day." Clara stayed with Sage through the night. She cleaned the mare's wounds, whispered to her, prayed over her, kept her warm. Ethan checked in often, never rushing her, never pushing his own fear onto her. By dawn, Sage tried to lift her head. By afternoon, she drank water. By nightfall, she struggled to stand. Ethan stared in disbelief. "I'll be damned," he murmured. "She might make it." Clara smiled weakly. "Told you. She's stronger than she looks." But their relief was short-lived. That night, Ethan woke with a fever so hot Clara felt it before she touched him. His face was swollen from the old storm wound. His breathing was shallow. "Ethan," Clara whispered, fear gripping her chest, "stay with me. Please." For 3 days she nursed him. She wiped his skin with cool water. She held him when he thrashed. She kept the fire burning bright. At times he called for Sarah and Emma, trapped in fevered dreams. Clara held his hand and whispered comfort, even when her heart cracked hearing another woman's name on his lips. On the 3rd day, his fever broke. Sweat soaked his blankets. His eyes opened, clear and alive. "Clara," he whispered, "you stayed." "Of course I stayed," she said, tears falling freely. "Where else would I go?" Quote. He reached weakly for her hand. "You saved me." "No," she said softly, "we saved each other." Winter thawed slowly. Snow melted. The stream ran brighter. The valley woke with spring. One quiet morning, Clara stood by the window watching green push through the earth. Ethan came up behind her, resting a hand lightly on her back. "Reverend Morris is coming through the lower valley next week," he said. Clara turned. Her heart beat faster. If you still want." Ethan took her hands gently. "Clara May," he said in a steady voice, "I want to marry you, not because the town expects it, not because of what happened, but because you're the person I want beside me for the rest of my life." Her breath caught. "And I choose you," Clara whispered. "I choose this life. I choose us." He kissed her then, soft, slow, certain, the kind of kiss that felt like a promise. The wedding took place under tall pines. With wildflowers, Clara picked herself. A few mountain families gathered. Mary McCready cried softly. Ethan looked at Clara like she was the only thing he had ever seen that mattered. When they spoke their vows, Clara's voice didn't shake. "I promise to stand with you," she said. "In storms and calm, in loss and hope, I'm yours because I choose to be. Every day." Ethan brushed a tear from her cheek. "And I promise," he said, "that you will never again face this world alone." When he kissed her, the whole valley felt different, warmer, brighter, safer, home. Later, as they walked back toward their cabin hand in hand, Clara leaned into him. "Don't you dare leave me," she whispered. Ethan pulled her closer, his voice warm and steady. "This is where I belong," he said, "with you." Together, they stepped into the life they had built from broken pieces, stronger, braver, truer than anything either had known before.